What's up, guys? It's John, and let's talk insanity for a while. I think that's the best way to describe kind of where the NFL's headed as far as, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So I was kind of cramming the midnight oil trying to really think about why this win makes sense, and two things came to mind, and they kind of go hand in hand. So we went into the game. I'm not going to, go into that much more. There's not much to go into. It's obvious. It's funny because I thought, man, they really made this obvious that they wanted to almost just throw in people's faces scripted. Like talk to people about the commercial. The Chiefs are like, we want a slightly different result, but this is basically the same deal. Mahomes written out of the script, which we basically got. If you look for front and center here, he's all the way on. You see Kelsey, you see Swift, all these different guys in the playoff picture. We don't see Patrick Mahomes front and center. He's in there, obviously. But anyway, a lot of interesting things. The Lions making a conference championship. Even Mama Kelsey's joke where she's like, oh, I'd love to meet that Jimmy guy. Well, I'm sure he was at the game. It was in his hometown. So anyway, there's really one thing that I really wanted to figure it out. I'm a very curious person, so when there's something that I just can't place my finger on and that it doesn't make any sense, I really try and come up with the most logical solution. So anyway, I have a lot of people telling me we're going to see a Chiefs three-peat, or it's going to be them. Not a lot, but like a few people in the comments have said it. You got people liking the Ravens, of course. People looking at next year, and I am going to give my two early predictions. Even though it's just crazy early, why not? So, and I'm using wrestling to make this prediction. Of course, I've used wrestling in the past. Hasn't been perfect. It's got us pretty darn close, I'll say that. But since there's not much to go off of course, we'll have picks out in the preseason. But I feel like maybe, in 6 months, 9 months, whenever we're looking at this again, it'd be exactly a year by the Super Bowl, but it might help. Might be able to go back and say, you know what? Where was our mind fresh off of the last season? Kind of like when you watch an old season, an old show, and you watch like the last season of it, or the episode of, like, say you're on season 4, right, and you rewatch season 1 to 3 of I don't know, Stranger Things, so you can make sure you're caught up for season 4. I figure if I kind of put out an assessment right now, then maybe next year we could be way off, but maybe next year we could revisit it and see how well we're doing. So anyway, I wanted to go into, like I had said, why they would make it so obvious. Obviously, we got the threes. So this is what I mean by they double code everything. So obviously they made the game so obvious, right? Where Shefty predicts double overtime. And we don't get that. What we get is 3 seconds from double overtime. And of course the 3-point win, 3 rings for the Chiefs, 3-3-3-3 Al Davis way. There was threes just everywhere. Just threes out the wazoo. And then for what we cover is more the scripted entertainment aspect of it. The Mahomes comeback. Basically everything but him starting at his own 1-yard line. Just the drill we're all used to. And they gave it to us. Very simple. And they're like spoon-feeding the narratives. These obvious narratives. Oh man, he's going to be the first to do it since 19 years ago with Brady. And not Al Michaels. I think it was Al Michaels. It was Tony Romo and somebody. And it was the guy talking to Tony Romo. I don't know, I always forget. I guess I'm just so used to seeing Al Michaels. But anyway, he said 19 years ago, a whole generation, ago. Now it's a new generation. And it made me think. Because I had a theory that I believe is being realized. And my theory is the NFL is completely catering to a different audience group. So we can't assume that they're going to be scripting these games and all the damage control, all these things that they're doing. We can't assume they're doing this for even people in their 20s. Obviously, people in their 20s qualify, but 20 and up, is not what this is for. I genuinely believe that they understand they have a pre-teen to teen audience, and even low 20s, people that were teens when they were watching a couple years ago, and they're not going to question this. Again, a lot of people question this have been watching football for a while. So, you got Dora the Explorer explaining the rules. We had the obvious, the London game where they did Toy Story. They're not doing this for adults, and they wouldn't be doing this just for fun either. So this tells me that they have lost a good chunk of their adult fan base. They don't really care what the adult fan base thinks. and they're going to cater to this child fan base. The reason I really thought about this, obviously we knew about Nick. So basically now the company that wrote Mickey Mouse is producing their show on the network that wrote SpongeBob. Now, to an adult that sounds crazy, but there was something that reinforced this belief if you go to Twitter. If you go to Twitter, all you see, again, is people calling it scripted. And at first, I don't think there's a ton of. I'm sure they have bots that answers, specifically for their agenda. So if you have a giant platform like NFL on X, I'm sure they have bots installed and things like that. But what I noticed was just puppet-like responses. So, and very childish responses. So I'm thinking for a second, like, man, what are these 12-year-olds? And then I thought about it for another minute or two and said, wait a minute, they just had it on Nickelodeon. They probably are 12-year-olds. So somebody will lay out an argument as to why it's scripted. They'll say, oh, you know what? I've been watching for 22 years and I see this happen and then that happen and the other thing, and I believe it's scripted. And the response is go cry or cope or one of those deals where you see that kind of nonsense. And that's what you see out of children. Now, if you're an adult who says that, I'm sorry, but when you just see these one-word soundbite responses from people, it's usually a childlike response. So it's, in my opinion, a very good possibility that there's just, again, not only more kids and teenagers than ever watching the sport, but probably more consistently than adults. Again, everything's moving to YouTube and things like that, so it's not like it used to be where you're sitting down every Sunday with the family watching the game. Things have completely changed. So, just like WWE led into PG long, long time ago, now they did it for slightly different reasons, but I genuinely think that the NFL is just trying to optimize on their young audience, knowing it's their future audience, and it's also their current audience. So knowing that, it makes things a little bit different. Now, again, we don't know how much they're still trying to. It doesn't seem like they're trying to cater to the current fans at all. At all. I think they wouldn't have done the damage control deal and then came out and threw it in people's faces with the gematria people, with the threes, or again, us going into just the different narratives that were so obvious that they wound up doing them all. Didn't shy away from Swift and Kelsey after the game. All these different deals. Made sure to get all Taylor Swift's reactions. So you got the Swifties and children. And it seems like, and they kind of go hand in hand, and it seems like that's where they're catering to. So in knowing that, it helps a lot. Of course, it helps because we understand where they might be heading going forward as far as, okay, they really don't care, like people were saying. But there had to be a reason. When people kept telling me they don't care that we know it's scripted, I'm like, well, no, there has to be a reason. They do care if they're going to lose X amount of their fan base. But if they know they're going to be replaced with twice the amount of kids and teenagers and even young adults and just people, women that don't really care that much. Again, I don't think what age you're. I don't see that many women just watching Nickelodeon. So I think a big part of it's the child audience. So that's going to help us again because, in my opinion, they're going to book more fun teams that kids can see superstars on, and they'll root for those teams, things like that. Steph Curry is a perfect example in the NBA, and we saw him do it. So the NBA started this a little bit ago. Now I'm going to go with my pick. And again, a few people were bringing up Ravens. I had a few people saying it's going to be the Lions' time. And there are people saying that Chiefs are going to go again. A lot of people saying Jets. So early indicators, and I got to go with the Chiefs. I don't see why not. If you think of, in my opinion, the athlete who gets by far the most child worship in all of sports, and I'm talking retired or alive, dead or alive, whatever, it's Michael Jordan. He's just a guy that for some reason, if you're, I don't debate with children, but if you're debating with a child over the greatest, if they've seen some Jordan quotes and listened to some of these talking heads, it's been conditioned so well that Jordan's the greatest, you're never going to touch him. And of course you have children that are fans of other guys. My point is, for the longest time, it was children that really liked Michael Jordan, and it worked so well that you see in adulthood now, so many people won't even budge. He's the greatest. I'm not even going to listen. Look how it worked with The Rock and Austin. If you grew up liking one of these guys, if you grew up a Rock fan, you're probably still a Rock fan. Maybe not I grew up an Austin fan, and Rock was my second favorite. I think he's a scoundrel now, but I'm sure there's a lot of people. My point is, when you have a perception of a particular team or individual, since you're a child, which is again how Nickelodeon playing these games is going to get people in the product, you're probably going to keep that view. I genuinely think you wouldn't waste 2 years of this. They already slammed over people's head how they don't care about what we think. They don't care if we think it's the most scripted nonsense ever. And, they're basically going to do anything. I think it's got to be the Chiefs. And the reason being, A, we've never had, obviously a three-peat in the NFL. And what makes it more interesting is I looked into the teams that had, the Bills would be the only team who went 4 years in a row. And there was one time, and I'm wondering if we get it again, where the same teams played each other back to back in the Super Bowl. It was, I think, 26 and 27 when the Bills lost to the Cowboys 2 years in a row. Now, as I've said multiple times, I think WrestleMania kind of foreshadows the Super Bowl. So what I have above is the last five, and we got Arizona in here. I'm sorry, we got LA in here. There we go. So WrestleMania it's very weird. We had WrestleMania, it was in LA several years ago, and then it was in Tampa Bay. And it's interesting because if you look at the Super Bowl, it's kind of flipped. But I told you they tailed the Bucks when they won the Super Bowl, and they tailed because WrestleMania is obviously after football, and they were supposed to tail the Rams in LA. So they were going to be at the same venue, but obviously the COVID happened and they wound up changing it. But it's very interesting. And then obviously we have this coming WrestleMania, and then I have this coming Super Bowl, which is in NOLA. Now what makes it interesting is you got Texas in there, obviously. A lot of interesting things about Texas. Most people think of Mahomes. And then you look at the teams he played. He beat Philly. WrestleMania was in Philly. He beat San Francisco, or SoFi. It's pretty darn close. But he beat San Francisco. And obviously he beat San Francisco twice. And they were in LA and SoFi. So it's really interesting. And then he played Tom Brady, and it was in Tampa Bay. And then Texas is like the one in the middle. He hasn't. Maybe it means he play Dallas next year. It could mean a lot of things. But it's just really interesting. It seems like, again, one way or another, WrestleMania follows the teams that win a Super Bowl or in a Super Bowl or the venues. And obviously, you can just copy the venue. That would be smart business. That's what AEW does with Wimbledon and the Opens, I think, now. I think they're basically wherever there's a big... I think they had their all in one of them. It was at Arthur Ashe right after the Open. So following the venues isn't as suspicious. It's when they're in the city of a team that lost or a team that played in the Super Bowl. So this year it's Philly, and last year for WrestleMania it was Texas, or last year it was just SoFi, and then Texas the year before. But it's just weird. We got California, we got Philly in here. Obviously the Rams had won, and then Mahomes, the Tribal Chiefs, kind of in the center of it all. Obviously they're not going to have a WrestleMania in Kansas City, and then the Super Bowls were in Arizona. You think of Brock Purdy, in Tampa, in LA, in New Orleans, NOLA. And NOLA is very interesting because it takes everybody back to WrestleMania 3X, WrestleMania 30. A lot of interesting things happen there. But there's a lot of connections with the Tribal Chief. So these are the 5 results that I went into. We did the last 5 Super Bowl years, the last 5 WrestleMania years. And we had Tom Brady beat the Tribal Chief. Then we had Joe B. He lost to Hollywood. Joe Burrow there. Then the Tribal Chief. And again, this is the bottom parts, the wrestling. The Tribal Chief, 3 WrestleManias ago, won a triple threat. 2 WrestleManias ago, he beat Brock. And this year, he beat Mr. Irrelevant. Or this last year, I guess. Right? So I guess 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever. The last 3 WrestleManias. So the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns has won the main event of the last 3 WrestleManias. And he beat Brock and a guy he deemed Mr. Irrelevant in the last two. So I find that all very, very interesting. And it makes me believe the tribal chief, Pat Mahomes, is going to win his third Super Bowl in a year, or his third Super Bowl in a row. You could see the connection with Paul Heyman. I went into the Brock ending the streak 2-1-1. That was obviously the date. So it's really interesting. It's almost like Project Looking Glass because some of these things happened so long ago, but they tie in so perfectly. And I went into the 27-28 venue. You could see Atlanta, Cody. Just these were the venues. So it was in San Francisco and Atlanta. Now I don't think Atlanta's doing anything, but I think of Cody and just kind of some things that I noticed. Now somebody barred out, and I didn't, so it's cool to see other people are like in the comments are kind of onto this. If you look at the bottom 23, 24, 25, the score was a 3-point game, or was it 22-25, right? So the 22-23 year, the 23-24 year, and the 24-25 year would be next year. So you can see you got Chiefs versus Cowboys here, Cowboys versus Indian Bowl, and then Pat would make history. And this is just basically like my comments at the very bottom. He can never hit in my opinion, the Tom Brady legacy. He's not going to get 7 rings in 10 years. I just don't think it's there. You never know. But I think they're going, at this point, I think they have to go a different route and make him the only quarterback ever to three-peat. It's also the only way they could get Reed into the Belichick conversation. Right now, he's like 3 behind him, or he might be, I think he's 3 behind him. I just don't think you can get him into that conversation. And they were already planting those seeds towards the end of the game. And again, it could have just been for nothing. But to really be planning, reminding us how this is the Patriots, and is Pat Mahomes the GOAT? Again, they wouldn't be doing this with LeBron and Jordan. The media has actively repeated, like different people in the media, I've seen them asked, if LeBron gets another one, is he in Jordan's conversation? Nope. And it's like, well, why does Pat getting one make him in Brady's conversation? It doesn't make any sense. But they're trying to get certain seeds planted. So that being said, I genuinely think I'm just going with wrestling here. Again, Roman Reigns won 3 WrestleManias in a row, and now everybody is watching to see which team can knock him off, which team can beat him, who's finally going to beat Roman Reigns. Now we got Cody back to back going against him. Sure, you have people cheering for Roman, but more people are cheering for Cody. And again, you introduce his Hollywood sidekick. You can't make this stuff up. You got Kelsey and his Hollywood sidekick. In this, I told you, in this aspect, The Rock is basically playing the role of Taylor Swift. He's the attraction, bringing more eyes on the product. So we're gonna have a rematch next year with Brock or Roman and Cody. Does that mean that I think we get a rematch with the NFL? Well, like I said, I love the Chiefs, just based off what I'm seeing. And in fact, again, if I didn't think they were catering to children, or if I didn't think they cared about what the average person thought, then I wouldn't be saying Chiefs. Of course I wouldn't, because I'd have the logic, okay, well, now they really gave him his love. And now the public's probably going to be on them because they, this, that, and the other reason. But to be honest, I don't know how much the public will be on them. Because you see McAfee loved this, even calling it a spectacle, what we've referred to it in the past. But to me, it just seems like they're really trying to get this new generation, as I think Al Michaels put it. And what better way than to create the first Jordan moment, where people can say, oh my goodness, I was alive for this, nothing was like it, greatest dynasty ever, all these different deals. So even though it seems so darn obvious, and even though, again, you might have the public on this, but I'm not positive. A lot of public that watches the sport, they tend not to take the same team multiple times. Sometimes they will, but we really don't know where the public's going to be here. And there might be a lot of ups and downs, but like they're even setting up parade for Valentine's Day. This whole thing is just insane for Swift and Kelsey, I guess. But yeah, I absolutely love the Chiefs to go back next year. And there's only one of 2 teams that I can see it being against. We love the Lions this year more than a lot of people. That being said, I don't think they have the it factor yet to make sense. This year, the Niners made so much sense because of the All-Stars, just because of the way their football team is pushed. You got Mr. Irrelevant, all these different deals. And on the other side, I really believe the Lions, when if and when they do make a deeper run, it's going to be with Hendon Hooker. I really thought that guy in Tennessee was amazing. Obviously, you got the Peyton Manning connection there, and they just kind of quietly scooped him up. And I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to be Goff. But when they get Hendon Hooker in there, we might actually see the Lions make a run. I think they're saving it for Hooker. I could be wrong, but it really only leaves two teams that I think make a lick of sense. The Niners again, which again would really completely be copying wrestling as far as the repeat going right back to the same guys playing each other. And the other one, kind of related, would be Dallas. And Dallas is the only team that's part of another, again, a back-to-back where the same two teams played each other, but also you had a team that went 4 times in a row. So the Bills, the only time a team went multiple times after two, and Dallas was a part of that. So Dallas and San Francisco are my two immediate predictions from the beginning, coming into next year. And it's really who makes more sense between Dallas and San Francisco. I guess the question would be, how intriguing was this story? Obviously, it did so much in Vegas, this matchup, and the fans loved it. And I really don't know what they're going to do with Brock Purdy. So, like last year, I had Niners all year, but I mentioned AFC subject to change. Again, by like week 5, week 6, we went with our Mahomes versus the world narrative and kind of stuck with it. But same thing here. I'm sure the team in the NFC this year might change because different teams we're going to see different narratives from. So we might see some megastar trades, depending on how the draft goes. A lot of different things. But as of now, my pick for the AFC, and I don't see it changing, and to win the Super Bowl is the Chiefs. I just think a lot of people are telling me that. So it's not like it's a hot take or like some kind of crazy take. But I also have people that are saying that now they're done. They're not going to do another one. Maybe in a couple of years. Going to be the Jets this year. Going to be Jets Packers. Going to be whatever. And I don't think so. I do like the Cowboys because it gives us the Cowboys versus the Indians. I think it's a very interesting one in a political year. And there's other reasons too, but I went into it this year when people were mentioning Cowboys. I really didn't think we were going to see the Cowboys this year. But I like the Cowboys versus Indians narrative. And then, of course, we would have the rematch if it's Niners Chiefs, because again we had Roman fighting Cody 2 years in a row. Again, Roman just beat, again, this is by his admission, Mr. Irrelevant, and the year before he beat Brock. So like, you just can't make this stuff up, in my opinion. And then when Roman won the first Super, I think it was trying to tie the WrestleManias together, but he won his championship when Mahomes beat. I think it was the year he beat the Niners the first time, or it might have been when the Rams played the Bengals. I can't quite remember, but I find more interesting again 3 years in a row at WrestleMania, the Tribal Chief did win the championship and retain the championship. So I think they're going to take that angle where it's like, oh my gosh, who can beat the Chiefs? Who makes sense to beat the Chiefs? People thought it was going to be the Niners. They didn't do it, and when they played the Niners the first time, it was kind of 50-50. Mahomes was very new to the scene, so it wasn't like at that point. I guess that'd be comparative to when Roman Reigns beat Daniel Bryan and Edge. He had just kind of started going, just started to get cooking, I guess. And then this last year when Roman beat Cody, kind of similar to Roman just beating Brock Purdy, or I'm sorry, Cody beating Brock Purdy. And of course, before that, he beats the Eagles in Philly, where WrestleMania
You really
is
can't
this year.
overstate the Gecko's influence on culture.
This guy's interrupting me. Anyway, so yeah, now we got the WrestleMania in Philly this year. And again, it's just really interesting because Mahomes just beat the Eagles last year. It's almost like a Project Looking Glass type deal. But with all that being said, I actually do like next year it to be the Niners and Chiefs. I think we're going to get a rematch. It'll be like the first time. This would be the first time ever because we'd get a rematch in the middle of a three-peat or in the middle of even a back-to-back. Again, when the Bills and Cowboys did it, the Cowboys won both times, of course, but the Bills had gone 4 times and they lost all 4 times. I think they lost to the Redskins, and I forget the other team they lost to. So it's like taking 2 things that have never happened, but kind of happened, and mixing them. So I think the three-peat has to happen. You got to get the Chiefs in there to at least tease the possibility of a three-peat, and I think they will get it. So again, it just leaves the other side. And as the season goes on, we'll definitely reassess. The Cowboys, again, this year it was like the Cowboys and Niners were the two teams that made any sense. And they could have pushed either one. They could have pushed Parsons to the moon, but they kind of held back that push. Instead, they went with the Niners, and then they kind of looked kind of weak as the year went on. Their biggest reason I don't have the Cowboys is A, the Jerry Jones factor, and B, I really do think that they would have got a new coach. If they got rid of McCarthy and brought in some young, fun coach like Dan Campbell, or just a coach that has history of winning, I probably would be more on the Cowboys. But right now, again, it's kind of like I was saying at the beginning of this year. Who makes sense to play the the Chiefs next year? There's in my opinion not a lot of teams. You could do Lions, yeah, it'd be a different team. You could go, yeah, I guess like I said, Cowboys make some sense. You could do Eagles again. I don't think they would do them again. But I think what makes the most sense is the Niners. So I am sticking with that. They're going to do something with Brock. Really try and get him even looking even sharper next year. Maybe bring in a couple guys. Now again, my NFC is way more open to interpretation or just way more open to change based off how I interpret things than the AFC because I have the Chiefs winning it. I got them getting their third ring. You give them the Jordan treatment. They already are. They might as well pull the trigger. And again, they're catering to kids now. So, the argument that we really thought we were going to be using going into this year, we have to make sure that it's not too obvious. I think it goes out the window. They just don't care anymore. They really don't. And again, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's because they're just, they make so much money they don't give a crap. Again, at the end of the day, they're making money off the fan base and the gambling. But I think they genuinely don't care because they're bringing in a new base of very young adults, again, teenagers, and just people that been watching this for a couple years now, and they're not really going to use any kind of open mind when they're looking into this. Because some of the responses and again, I don't post on Twitter for a reason, but I'll look through the comments, and all these people are putting out level-headed reasons why they think it's scripted, and all you're seeing is like just childlike responses. I'm like, how many people watching this are children? I type in Nickelodeon, yeah, NFL, and I didn't realize how crazy the partnership was. So that's probably why we got Swift, and we have all these childlike antics going on in the NFL. So yeah, I think we definitely are going to get the Chiefs winning a third time, and you can see that these articles are pretty ridiculous. Apparently, the Niners did not know the overtime rules. I don't know how we're supposed to believe that. Again, in a realistic league, again, unless they're children and they're acting like children, there's no way you wouldn't know the rules to overtime. It's not that hard. They added like 3 addendums this year. Like the only addendum is this is like when McNabb said, I didn't know there was a second overtime. I don't know if you guys remember that. Or he said, I didn't know it ended in a draw. It was in the regular season. And he's like, oh, I thought there was going to be another period, and I didn't know that you could have a draw. Well, here you have the Niners saying, I'm guessing what they're saying is they thought, it didn't make a difference anyway, that there wouldn't have been a second period. I don't know. And as we know, with 3 seconds left, by 3 points, the Chiefs won. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. Again, for me, most of this is my wrestling logic. And it's the fact that people are watching WrestleMania. And here's another thing. I think they understand people aren't watching every single week like they were. So they're building up their show of shows, their Super Bowl, to be the craziest spectacle so they can get as much action and as many people watching as possible. Just like WrestleMania, I went into this in a video not that long ago. Between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, not a lot happens. So a lot of people they won't really watch the product that much. They wait till WrestleMania, and then they'll watch to see, hopefully for them, Roman Reigns lose. So that's what we're going to be seeing here, in my opinion. We're going to see people wanting to see who's going to dethrone the Chiefs, who's going to be the one to beat Patrick Mahomes, and if when a team finally does beat these guys, who they can say, oh man, these guys have been champs for 1,200 days or whatever the case may be, 3 years in a row, and then going into the 4th year, I think people are just you're going to have so many people bought into the story. It's a long-term story. Again, if you said years ago Roman Reigns would be the champ for 4 years, people would have said, you're insane. They can't do that with the WWE Championship. It'll get stale. People will stop watching. and more people are watching than in a very long time, and it's because it's a long-term storytelling. And again, the fact that they both just happen to be the tribal chief, I just find way too much to be a coincidence. So yeah, uh, I really think it's going to be the Chiefs again. I'm going to go Chiefs Niners in a Super Bowl rematch, and the Chiefs win. And I know it sounds kind of boring. It doesn't sound too new and too fresh, but I don't think we're going to get anything fresh at least this next year. They got to at least get Mahomes back there so they can say the first quarterback to ever three-peat. Again, technically, Jim Kelly did it, but in a losing effort. So even if Mahomes were to get there and lose, which I don't think they would do, I think they'd give him the win like Michael Jordan. But even if he were to get there and lose, they'd say he was like the first reigning champion to three-peat, however they want to word it. But you have to have that story, in my opinion. So yeah, based off of wrestling, you see them talk about history, and the fact again that I don't know if Mahomes will ever be able to just be unless they really do some crazy things past Brady outside of the three-peat. Then you can say, well, he won 5 or 6, not 7, and he only won them with one team, not 2 different teams. But he three-peated. Tom Brady never did that. Nobody ever did that outside of Michael Jordan. So that's just where I'm leaning. Right now, I think Mr. Irrelevant going back for round 2 makes the most sense. But again, Cowboys make sense as well. So very open to both of those teams. And as much as I like Detroit, I'm just not as open to them right now. I think they're going to kind of build this team over the next year, and maybe the teams that dethrone them. That maybe in 2 years we get Kansas City, Detroit. And yes, I am putting out the possibility of the Chiefs going 4 years in a row. I think the biggest deal with this is, again, you kind of have to beat the champs to be the champs. As Ric Flair said, you got to beat the man, you got to be the man, or to be the man, you got to beat the man. And here, it's having to knock off the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid Chiefs. So I just don't see like Josh Allen getting into the Super Bowl next year, and then the Chiefs quietly going back in a couple of years. You have to finish the three-peat. There's no way you go this far and you don't finish it at this point. This year would have never happened. They wouldn't have done it this year with people saying how scripted it is. So that tells me they just don't care. They really don't care. And again, it's because I think they're trying to get a new audience, a new generation. And what better way than to, again, the face of that generation, the Michael Jordan, whatever you want to call him, and just, you know, like, display how great he is. This year is the greatest from a lot of people's perspective. We know it was scripted, but the greatest, single performance, I think, by a player, if you look at winning 4 games on the road as favorites or as underdogs. It's just insane. So I genuinely think they're going to run it again next year. Again, I know it doesn't sound anything crazy, but it just seems obvious to me. We're going to see the Chiefs go back, and I think they're going to go up against Mr. Irrelevant again. It was a great draw this year. They could add a guy or two to make their team even more menacing. And I think they're just going to copy Cody versus Roman, if I'm being honest. And again, I'll look more into the NFC. Again, Cowboys do make some sense. Lions would make some sense if they did a few things. And there's some other teams I might be overlooking. I really don't think it's going to be Philly at all. I basically have them eliminated. It seems like they're just giving them the Bills treatment where it's going to be quite a bit. So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. I know a lot of you guys might not have the Niners going back, but I'm just trying to think who makes the most sense, and it's really just Niners or Cowboys. They're the only 2 teams that have a squad, in my opinion, where you could match them up against this Chiefs team, and people would say, oh man, they have the advantage. You can't do it with any other team right now, unless they add like 3 crazy free agents. So of course we'll go into the off season, we'll go into official picks as the season starts, but I just wanted to put it out now that, yeah, I like the Chiefs to win next year's Super Bowl. I think they're getting plus 700, so they're getting good odds. The Niners are getting better odds. I don't know why. But yeah, I think it's going to be them two again. If not, I could totally see Kansas City, Dallas. But either way, I think Kansas City is going to win it. There's no team, in my opinion, right now that would be worthy of knocking them off of that three-peat pedestal. If it wound up being Detroit, that's one situation where they might pull the trigger. But again, there's a lot to happen. So I'm just trying to go into different teams that make sense, teams that don't make sense. And in the AFC, it would take a lot to knock me off the Chiefs for next year. Just because you have the three-peat narrative. They don't care about the script. They're trying to bring in their new Nickelodeon fan base. What better way than to give Mahomes three in a row? Again, to completely copy Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. So it all makes perfect sense to me. And right now, I say they beat the Niners again, but very good chance it'll be Chiefs Cowboys. So officially, I'll go Chiefs Niners just because I think they're going to do the back-to-back deal. But as the season goes on, we'll know what they're going to do. If they pull the plug on Brock Purdy or something like that, then that changes a lot, of course. Or if Dallas, I don't know, fires their coach, which I don't think they're going to do. But the coach has a big role to play in this, and as much as Shanahan loses, I think McCarthy has been pitched as a bigger loser as far as, I don't know, I just don't think he's going to be winning any Super Bowls anytime soon. And you got Jerry Jones, you got a lot of other reasons. So, yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. I thought they even used Magic Mahomes. We say Mahomes Magic, but it's just interesting. That's what I'm saying. They're not even trying to shy away from this. They are 100% just tripling down. So, I guess fittingly would be a triple, a triple championship for Mahomes here. So yeah, that's what I think happens. Chiefs go back, they win. First guy to ever three-peat. They're not hiding from it. They want a new audience. It's a new generation. So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. If you think Chiefs Niners makes sense again, Chiefs win, or if you think it'll be something slightly different. But I wanted to go into that demographic because it's pretty important. I wanted to go into the wrestling tie-ins. You can see WrestleMania a lot of times gives away who's going to be in the Super Bowl, or the WrestleMania is in the same venue as the Super Bowl. Interesting things. And I really thought it was interesting, just if you look at it again, Pat's last two opponents were Mr. Irrelevant and Philadelphia. You look where WrestleMania is, and then again, Roman beats Brock, Pat beats Brock. Roman beats Mr. Irrelevant, Pat beats Mr. Irrelevant. Just very coincidental. I don't think it could be a coincidence at this point. So yeah, using the wrestling logic, we got the Chiefs winning next year's Super Bowl. Maybe for the first time we'll get this is an off-season pick, but a pick before the year. We come closer every single year. Our team made the championship last year, got to the Super Bowl this year. Hopefully next year we actually get it done and win the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. I'm just liking the three-peat. Might sound simple. To some, it might sound a little unrealistic, but I don't think at this point anything's off the table. And as of now, the Niners make the most sense to match up against them. So, yeah, let me know what you think. We'll be going into a lot of NBA, of course, so I figured I'd get this out here now, just for people who might be curious what my initial thoughts are going into next year. Again, we have a draft. We have a million things that are going to happen. So, just like the Lions, coming into the year, there wasn't much. But once we had the off season to work with, and we saw where Vegas was, that's when we had the Lions going all the way to the NFC Championship. So there's going to be some teams that I'm sure after the draft with off season, things like that, how they're being pitched, maybe a trade, they're going to be hot out of nowhere, and we'll go into that. But this is just, again, too early predictions, I guess, as they call it. Definitely love the Chiefs to win it. Nothing's going to get me off that, I don't think. And liking the Niners on the other side. So take care and happy earnings.